Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down the absolute massive scale of the historic 2026 World Cup and mapping out the remaining contenders' paths to glory. We are looking at a tournament of just unprecedented proportions, co-hosted across the US, Canada, and Mexico. So we're going to use the actual data and results straight from the tournament to understand exactly how this giant bracket has narrowed down to our final elite contenders. Okay, let's kick things off with this staggering number. 104. That's the total number of matches played in this tournament. It's a huge expansion from the 64 matches we saw back in Qatar in 2022. I mean, that's 40 additional opportunities to witness World Cup magic, spread across 16 different stadiums in 3 time zones. But honestly, for the players and the managers, it seriously raises the physical and mental stakes for every single nation. The marathon to the final is literally longer and more grueling than it has ever been in the history of the sport. So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the historic new format, look at the group stage standouts, brave the knockout gauntlet, preview those huge quarterfinal showdowns, and finally, trace the paths to glory. All right, part 1, a historic new format, also known as the Ultimate Gauntlet. We've jumped from a 32-team field to a massive 48 teams, sorted into 12 groups of 4. What this means in practice is that instead of just 16 teams advancing directly to the knockouts, the top 2 from each group are now joined by the 8 best third-place finishers, funneling into a brand new round of 32. The crucial takeaway here: goal difference is now a live, highly tactical concern from literally the first whistle. You can't just settle for a draw anymore. Every single goal scored or conceded could be the difference between packing your bags and sneaking into that new knockout round. Moving right along to part 2, group stage standouts, or the perfect 9. Look at the sheer perfection from these 3 squads. You've got host nation Mexico dealing with the massive pressure of performing at home at the Estadio Azteca, securing all 9 points with 6 goals scored and 0 conceded. Incredible, right? Then France, the 2022 runner-up, just cruised through with a massive +8 goal differential. And defending champion Argentina matched that flawless 9-point run. They didn't just survive the group stage, they absolutely commanded it. Now, on the flip side of that, we have the ultimate survivors. These are the 8 third-place teams that barely scraped through to enter the expanded bracket. Look at DR Congo. They ended a 52-year World Cup drought dating all the way back to 1974, and they snuck through with just 4 points. Sweden and Ghana also navigated some insanely tight margins. It perfectly highlights why this format change is such a game changer. Under the old rules, these teams would be going home. Instead, they got a lifeline. Okay, part 3, the knockout gauntlet falling giants. So with this crazy new sudden death round, you really gotta ask, who actually had the grit to survive the chaos of the first ever round of 32? Because when you introduce an extra knockout game, you introduce an extra chance for the heavyweights to stumble. And oh man, stumble they did. The results were absolutely shocking. 4-time champ Germany, a team we basically associate with World Cup consistency, crashed out against Paraguay in a super tense 4-3 penalty shootout. And Morocco, proving their 2022 semifinal run was no fluke, they stunned the Netherlands, also on penalties after a 1-1 draw. This just brilliantly illustrates the sheer unpredictability of this round. The margins of error are practically 0. Then, the gauntlet tightened even more in the round of 16, giving us some absolute thrillers. The biggest headline for sure was Norway sending tournament favorite and 5-time champion Brazil packing in a 2-1 upset. Just a massive clash of generational talents. Meanwhile, Belgium decisively ended the US run on home soil with a 4-1 victory. And in a really emotional Iberian derby, Spain edged Portugal 1-0, which officially brought the curtain down on Cristiano Ronaldo's legendary World Cup farewell tour. Which brings us to the dramatic climax, part 4, quarterfinal showdowns, the final 8. Here they are, the 4 titanic matchups standing between these surviving nations and a coveted spot in the final 4. We've got traditional European powerhouses, the defending South American champs, a North African squad that just refuses to quit, and a huge emerging Scandinavian threat. Let's break them down. On one side, you have France attempting to make real history. They're trying to become the first team since Brazil back in '94 to 2002 to reach 3 consecutive World Cup finals. They are a well-oiled machine. But they're facing off against a super resilient Morocco, a team that's already knocked out the Netherlands and Canada. They firmly established a giant killing reputation. It's essentially dynasty versus destiny. Next up, we have an undefeated Spanish squad, fresh off retiring Ronaldo, playing with immense momentum. They're going head-to-head with a Belgian team that just dismantled the US. For Belgium, this is widely considered the absolute last dance for their golden generation. It's their final, desperate shot at capitalizing on a decade of talent and finally bringing home major silverware. Then we have giant slayer Norway. Fresh off beating Brazil, they are playing completely fearlessly right now. They're looking to disrupt an English side that is facing massive, crushing scrutiny from their media and fans back home to finally win the trophy. England narrowly survived a 3-2 thriller against Mexico in the round of 16, so the pressure on them here is just astronomical. And finally, we have the defending champs Argentina. This is Lionel Messi's last dance on the world stage, and they've looked incredibly sharp. But they've got to get past a highly disciplined Swiss squad. Switzerland is battle-tested. They just survived a grueling penalty shootout against Colombia. Argentina absolutely cannot afford to underestimate that Swiss defensive structure. All right, our final section, paths to glory. Who has the edge? What's really fascinating about how this tournament was engineered is the FIFA bracket system itself. Because Spain, Argentina, France, and England all won their respective groups, the bracket purposefully separated them. This guarantees that these absolute giants can only meet each other in the semifinals or the grand final. It perfectly sets the stage for monumental clashes right at the very end. If we look at the raw data to project some probabilities of who takes it all, France holds the highest statistical edge, with a massive +8 goal differential from the group stages. They're closely trailed by Argentina at +7 and Spain at +5. These teams haven't just been winning, they've been completely suffocating their opponents, which historically is a huge indicator of tournament longevity. So as we look ahead to the climax of this historic 104-match marathon, keeping all these stats and insane upsets in mind, the ultimate question is this: which of these final 8 remaining squads do you think has the tactical brilliance and the sheer mental fortitude to survive the gauntlet and lift the trophy at MetLife Stadium on July 19th? Let that sink in as you watch these quarterfinals unfold. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and enjoy the rest of the tournament.